Welcome to the Adley Oil and Gas Report. Today you're going to hear a little bit about PHAs and Haliburton. Stay tuned. Today is July 24th, 2017. Welcome to the Adley Oil and Gas Report, coming to you live from the Sunbelt Plaza in Lafayette, Louisiana. This is Susan Frizzell, the president of Adley Services. If you need to get in touch with me, my email is susan@adleyservices, ADLEY, servicesplural.com. Today, I have with me Brad and JB.
What's up?
How you doing?
So, I just want to talk about JB real quick. I have been dying to get JB on our show, but he's always on these long-term assignments with these operators and so forth. And I said, JB, you got to come do the Adley Oil and Gas Report with us. But he's like, look, I got a client. I'm representing them out in the field. There's a lot of red tape. They have to go over the questions. I said, you just wait. I'm going to catch you between them, and I'm going to grab you. Well, he stopped by the office today, say hi. And so just to give you all forewarning, I literally brought him in the studio to show him my podcast studio and said, listen to these headphones. They sound great. And then I hit the record button. So
it's impressive.
So before we get too much into this, JB, introduce it. Tell us your name and a phone number and an email. How do people who listen to you, if they want to get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. My name is JB Glass. My phone number is 337-552-6548. And you can email me at, johnbrighamglass@gmail.com.
Roger. And just real quick, shoot those your certification titles, so forth out, so that our listening audience can kind of put it in context who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, the majority of my experience has been in the commercial diving market. I was a commercial diver, a mixed gas diver, air supervisor, held positions as in diving industry, operations manager, project manager. I've done technical sales and recently HSEQ director of a commercial diving company here. I currently have an MBA from Nicholls State University. I have a CET, a Certified Environmental Health and Safety Trainer, and a CHST, Construction Health and Safety Technician through the BCSP. I also have a COS and a COSM through the Alliance Safety Council.
Very impressive alphabet soup there.
Yeah, it was. And what we're going to do is when we go through a few little housekeeping items, we're going to come back from a break and we're going to have JB. I got a list of questions he hadn't seen yet, and we'll put him on the spot and we'll see how on his toes my safety expert is. All right. Before that being said, Suze has a little bit of housekeeping information for our loyal listeners.
Sure. According to the NASDAQ, Brent crude oil is trading at $48.48. The Baker Hughes U.S. rig count is 950, which I believe is still growing from the last time we checked in, but it is up. It's almost double, or it's over double what it was last year at 488.
I think it took a lick of 2 from last week.
Okay. Stocks of interest today. We're going to discuss a little bit about Haliburton, which is trading at $42.91, which is down $1.43 today, and it's down It's down from its 7-day high of 45. So it's coming down a little bit, but we've got some interesting news coming up on that.
Mm-hmm. And then Cabot trading today, when we checked it just a second ago, at $24.82. I'd like to tell you it's down or up from yesterday, the week before, but it's just doing like a sine curve around that $25 mark. So if I checked it right now, it may be up $2 and check it again and maybe down $2. With the Haliburton, we got some really interesting news coming up. We're going to talk about Haliburton. And this, I want to just stress again the price of their stock, that we're recording this probably at 11 o'clock in the morning. So the stock market really hadn't been open but a few hours, and it's already down $1.43. When Susan moves on to our news of the day and we start talking about Haliburton, yes, I said down $1.43 off of its 7-day high of 45.78, trading at 42.91. Because I know once she starts talking about it, you say, why is the stock down? That doesn't make sense. So with that being said, without further ado.
Right. So to our listeners, remember that we pull our data directly from companies' websites and information. We're not going to regurgitate the same news for you. This is a press release from Haliburton's website dated today, July 24th, 2017. They are reporting a second quarter income of $408 million. The first quarter income was only $203 million. We have a 16% increase in the revenue this quarter, total company revenue being $5 billion for the second quarter. This is amazing news. Like we are showing huge increases in income, and which is great. It's great for our industry, which means business is starting to get moving, but it doesn't make sense with the stock. The stocks are dropping.
I know
today.
Wall Street's not buying it.
I don't know. I'm not saying buy or sell. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Because, we've seen this in other industries, and when you start scratching your head like this of what's going on, it makes you wonder, is Wall Street questioning the validity of this second quarter report? Or are they questioning the endurance of it, if you will?
Maybe so.
And so those, because I'm thinking if you got destroyed on the first quarter and the second quarter you come out swinging, I'm not an economics major, but I think your stock price reflects such.
Unless it was due to some cuts that haven't been seen in there.
The
But they didn't really
revenue's up.
Report much in their press release, so we just wanted to let you know that.
Now, you can go to Haliburton's website for news and release. I only gave Susan the first page out of fairness, but this thing's like, this release is 13 or 14 pages long. Go read it. Digest from it what you will. So on the other news, Cabot Oil and Gas. U.S. Bank Corp was a significant investor in Cabot Oil and Gas, and just recently in their Form 13F filing with the SEC, which I had looked at and I had saved it, I can't find it. You can search Cabot's SEC filings and find their 13F, and you can get it straight from the horse's mouth. So Cabot, being a heavy investor, went even more, 25% increase in their second quarter, 25% increase in their holdings of Cabot Oil and Gas. So we have one company that is up in revenue.
Not getting investors.
And the investors are sell. And then we have Cabot, U.S. Bank Corp's now at 751,000 shares, up in 152,000 shares from their prior holdings. $25 a share times 152,000, a lot more than I can count on my fingers. So, U.S. Bank Corp really dumped in some money into Cabot, a few $1 million, and their stock's still isolating around $25 a share. So
I'm going to make a note to give those guys a call and see if they need some help.
Yeah. So again, we just at the Adley Oil and Gas Report, we don't predict the future. We just, when we see something that kind of makes us scratch our head, we know our listeners are very smart and they'll figure it out. And we just point out anomalies to you. So with that being said, where are we at, Suze?
I believe it's time for a break. Let's take a short break.
Okay. After the break, we're going to have JB on the hot seat, sizzling like bacon in July. And then from there, we'll probably move on to Susan talking about the Adley Adventures, which is PHA, and you guessed it, more PHA. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sitting here with Susan Frizzell, President of Adley Services, and JB Glass, our safety expert extraordinaire. So JB stopped by to say hi. We've been knowing him for a while. And I said, JB, come look at my studio. I said, have a seat. Try the headphones on. Talk into the mic. And then I was like, Susan, quick. Come in here. We're going to record a podcast episode.
He did he.
So, yeah. So this is a guerrilla podcast for JB. But I think he'll do fine. He's an expert. So a few things we're gonna go over. Susan, as the president of a company, always has interesting questions. And JB also always has interesting stuff to talk about. And then there was a story he was telling me earlier today about a safety incident and lice and recordables. So
potential recordables.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, we'll get to that later on in a second. But right now, I always got to begin with Susan as owner of a company. He's not charging us about an hour right now.
Yeah.
So get on it.
Okay. Talking from a safety programs perspective, how often as an owner should I be reviewing my safety programs?
Okay, that's kind of a split question there. If the company, and the company that I work with many that are either ISO certified or they have some type of recognized process safety management or compliance management, that you may have under your records control a document review procedure that states X amount of years. A lot of times it's 3, but those records could be updated as they need, obviously, but at minimum 3 years. If you have some type of non-certified QMS, you would set that yourself, but I wouldn't box yourself in. But it really just does come down to the fact that if certain documents haven't been looked at in a period of time, more than likely they do need some type of review. And I would also put a note in there that for people that aren't under the ISO blanket or people that are in that, to be very mindful not to put people's names in those documents. So
good point.
Mm-hmm.
You use the position, and obviously if there's something changes within the structure of the organization, a periodic review may need be to see if you're adding or subtracting somebody that may be in some type of process.
That's what I was thinking.
Chart. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So I've new, as a growing company, we're doing new things every day, and I need to make sure that the new things that we add as skills, they're covered in our safety moments. So I'm starting to get a decent amount of JSAs going with the projects that we've been working, going offshore and onshore land facilities and stuff. How often do I need to keep my JSAs, or I'm sorry, how long do I need to keep my JSAs in file?
That again would be up to the specific company. If they're electronic and you're recording them that way, I mean, space is cheap, doesn't cost anything. Right. If you're more of a paper type company, job folders just tend to stack up and you'd have to come up. The only thing I would say that I don't think that there's anything, by law that you need to keep your JSAs for a certain amount of time. But I would say, one great element of JSAs is not only keeping them, but when it comes to either the project's manager or HSE or even senior or executive management, that they conduct periodic JSA reviews and then get that feedback back to the supervisor on site.
And it's one of those things where I guess we could always check with our operators, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. The answer is going to be, check with your safety department,
right,
and bounce it back forward. And Susan is amazing about doing JSAs for everything. I would bet you $100 that she has probably a JSA on filing the JSAs.
I've made JSAs when I like to cook, obviously, and I have we do cook-offs, and that's a big thing down here. I have a JSA on prep, setup, how to handle food in a hot environment. I mean, just believe it or not, that's just his element, and really that's a huge deal. If you have, say a sales group that usually isn't involved in JSAs and anything, and seeing your field personnel or even management come by and seeing sales people with JSAs from that morning for the cook-off, I mean, you're talking about hot work and all kinds of stuff. So it's very impressive.
I love that. And you know what? The Stone Energy / Raider United Way cook-off is coming up in a month or so, a couple months. I'm totally going to go around and ask them if they did a JSA before they started cooking.
Do they have a hot work permit too?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, fire extinguishers, the lot, handling food, having the proper tools to do the job. I mean, that's really what JSAs are all about. I would also say too, just like documents, your JSA tasks, individual JSA tasks, it's a good idea to sit down with field personnel, supervisors, and go over the specific tasks at some type of periodic review. Because they change and tools change and,
right,
and new technology and everything else. So it's a good idea to check your own JSA task library and review it.
Oh, I always find when we sit down with employees and do our safety moment, our lunch and learn, and we go over, they all roll their eyes, but I say, okay, guys, we're going to do a little JSA training today because I like to be on site with the guys, but sometimes I have to go run around and they have to do their own JSAs. And you'd be amazed that once we have a JSA training, I'll sit there and look. Every JSA we do, either me or Susan looks at every one of them. And obviously, Susan, did you do a JSA training last week? She goes, wow. I'm like, man, these things are forever long and detailed.
They're talking about the weather. They're talking about...
I'm like, did we start paying these guys by the word on these JSAs?
Right. Well, the more detailed, there's always that fight between canned JSAs, as they call them, and then handwriting. And I think that there needs to be a little bit of both. Your JSA task library is literally a going through the motions and figuring things out sometimes. And, if you're handwriting your JSAs on something even as simple as hot work and it's being handwritten, it really depends on the level of experience that you have on that job site. There is an element to having those lessons learned incorporated in your JSA task library and, writing in other things on the JSA.
And, that's what I tell the employees. I say, listen, I go and review all these BSEE incidents and so forth. And most of the time, it was something that was discussed in the JSA, and then it happened, and whatever was talked about in the JSA was not followed during the job. Mm-hmm. And I say, I'm not pointing fingers, but at the end of the day, I feel that JSA could have been a little more effective in the sense that the point of the JSA is not, hey, we talked about it, we documented it, put it in the paperwork, we get sued. What we talked about it is, listen, don't use the wrong tool for the wrong job. And the guys know, because if I show up on a job site and I see a tool there that I don't want there, it's going in the trash. So if that's your favorite hard hat in the world and it's expired, it better stay on your desk because I will throw it in the dumpster and send you away and you can come back with a good one.
Yeah, I know the SEMs, in coming in with SEMs that, they're moving towards and especially offshore JSAs have evolved in this respect. But when it comes to that JSA task, there is an assignment and you need to assign a competent employee to make sure that that task is being reviewed so sometimes on JSA reviews that I'll do, I'll look at that and I'll see that, they talked about it in the safety meeting or maybe even a toolbox meeting and they added it on. But sometimes they'll fall into the trap of assigning one guy to do 15 or 20 tasks in a day. And that doesn't work. You need to, obviously that one Joe diver guy did not check wasn't responsible for everything on deck. So,
or you got Billy,
mix it up.
It says Billy will be responsible that work is conducted in a safe manner.
Right.
Like Billy's over there like,
those generalities.
Yeah, he's like, I just sweep the floor, but okay, be safe. Right. So here's the deal. I originally was going to hit JB up to talk about world-class safety and PPE no-nos. I do know this, that before I hit the record button, Jay said, I have a hard deadline. I have to get out of here because I have a meeting to go to. And we are really, really pushing this deadline. So one thing I'd like to talk to you about is I will invite you, if I can get a hold of you before you go for... See, here's the thing about JB I didn't really talk a lot about. He is not a consultant that goes and does short-term assignments. Like, I'm going to go in there and talk to you people for an hour, and then everything's going to be the end-all, be-all. He's a true professional, a true expert, and really takes his craft very seriously. So he usually gets involved in these very long-term assignments in a managerial or executive position. And when he does that, I can't get him on this podcast. So I'm going to hit you up for the world-class safety and the PPE no-no on a later date, but it's on the books and
sounds good.
Invitations there. But before I let you go, you got to enlighten us with the lice recordable that may or may not have been a recordable. So give us the story about this because the listeners have to hear this one.
Well, sure. And, this is where, as safety professionals that, we have that.
Let me just stop you real quick. We're all scratching our heads in here.
Well, in world-class organizations, safety is internalized by every level, from the deck level to the projects level, ops level, safety level. So it's not just the safety people that are responsible for safety. But, with that being said, a lot of times that, the safety professionals or a safety group usually is the liaison between executive management and what they want and what they expect and also the field because, sometimes we're a sounding board for that. Well, we got a call that are from our project manager that we had a project going on was a barge job working, and then there was a materials barge that was pretty much a floating hotel. They added some crews. They put another Connex box. Essentially, it was set up for living quarters, and there was 8 crews that were in this living quarters, and they did their work at that day, transferred from barge to barge on a vessel and went to sleep. Woke up the next morning and there was quite a bit of itching and scratching going on. Come to find out that quarters barge had lice infestation. So their safety people that were in total control over the project had called their occupational medical doctor, and they were going to, of course, get the lice medication to treat all of the linens and clothes and stuff like that. But then they were also going to prescribe, being the operative word, lice medication. So our supervisor called the project manager. Project manager talked to me in the HSE department, and the big difference is that there is over-the-counter medication. The prescription is just slightly stronger, but under the OSHA recording guidelines, that anything that is prescribed by a medical doctor is a recordable. So the company could have taken an 8 recordable hit in one day, which is just that could knock a company out of from an A to a D and at risk and everything else that goes along with that. And it'll blow your TR out of the water. So it is good to have field guys to pass that on, people that have that safety internally, that at least have a basic understanding of what constitutes a recordable, and to make sure they get the HSE department and the OCMED doctors involved. It wasn't necessary. Obviously, you're going to treat to make sure.
In this story, the doctor was okay with non-prescription shampoo.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
He's like,
It
if
was
you want
just that-
non-prescription, we'll give you non-prescription, whatever you want, you know?
Right, but the other Ahmed doctor that was for the parent company that was in total charge of the project was just ready to write off a prescription for these guys.
As a mom, I gotta say I do appreciate that prescription stuff, and I would have wanted it, but
Oh, if I'd been on that
but
bar,
I'd have gotten off the boat before I asked for the prescription stuff.
Those guys weren't happy at all. That's for sure.
oh no, if I was on the barge, I'd be give me the undiluted prescription stuff and get me off this barge. JB, I severely thank you for coming on here.
I appreciate the opportunity. It's fantastic.
And I have to guess this was probably one of your first podcasts, huh?
It definitely is.
Doing much better than I did on
Wow.
my first podcast.
When Susan's first podcast, I was like, there's not even words on the paper. How are you reading from the paper? There's not even words. I was dying here. And then the editing, holy moly. This thing, I don't think I'm going to have to do hardly any editing, so I'm pretty ecstatic about that.
Good deal.
Well, I know you got somewhere to go to, and we're going to take a quick break and get him unhooked up and get his headphones and everything off. And if you want to talk more about JB to this, he is always up for good conversation. And if you're listening to this now and you think your company could benefit from his services, I'm telling you, I've been knowing JB probably 20 years, and this guy.
You're old.
I know. Well,
Aren't we all?
We met in elementary school, but no. And so, JB, this is somebody you get in touch with, have those high level discussions. This guy is a true safety professional. He's not somebody who's a safety guy. He takes it very serious and keeps the shareholders of the company in mind to make sure that what's done safety benefits everybody. So JB, real quick before you get out of here, give us your contact information again.
My email address is johnbrighamglass@gmail.com, and my cell is 337-552-6548.
All right, and if for some reason you're on that treadmill and you got it cranked up, or you're on that exercise bike, or you're in traffic dealing with a guy who won't let you over, even though your blinker's on and he knows you want to get over on the Houston 45, you can always email Susan at adleyservices.com or Brad at adleyservices.com. We'll be more than happy to pass on his information to you. So, on behalf of Adley Services, actually, I'll let the president tell you thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure.
And we will be back shortly.
Yes, we will be back, and I'm going to put Susan on the PHA hot seat. Burn it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for our next segment of the Adley Oil and Gas Report. So, if you've been listening to us, you know that we've been really knee-deep in PHA work, and that's process hazard analysis. So I figured I'd take a quick little break, second, for Susan to kind of just give us things that she's seen, saw, learned, or 2 bits for maybe you project managers out there or safety people out there who have to do a HAZOP, and let us know. I got a couple questions for you, but first, let's talk about some of the things that you saw in the PHAs as far as preparations and so forth that you liked.
Okay.
And we're not going to talk about the dislikes. So just give us a little stories from the trenches.
So PHA, process hazard analysis, we're looking at these. In most cases, you've got to revalidate them every 5 years. Some of the most important things to prepare before you go in there is your drawings. Get your drawings up to date. It's so nice as an engineer in the meeting and as a facilitator to have current drawings so that when you prepare for the PHA, everyone in the room knows that everyone's ready because the drawings are up to date and the facilitator can really get.
So should we just wing it?
Yeah.
And so for those who haven't done a PHA, who's in the room?
You have to have a facilitator, an engineer. So the facilitator is familiar with the PHA process. You've got the engineer familiar with the
design and
process, the actual process. And then the operator who's also familiar from the operational side of the process.
And there may be multiple instances of engineers and operators in this room.
Sure.
And the reason why I bring this up is because she's talking about preparation. Think about how much per hour everybody in this room is charging the company. And if we got to sit here and try to figure out, is this the right, correct version of the drawing and make phone calls, that's a lot of money being spent that could be spent somewhere else.
Right. Getting all your documents, all the incidents that have happened in the past since the last PHA, all of your management of changes, all of your inks of any sort, accidents. Get all that stuff together ahead of time and definitely have the drawing. Get the operator to send their markups of the drawings, have the engineer get the drawings up to date, any kind of field changes, out of service equipment, new equipment removed. Let's get all that stuff corrected on the drawings before we start
any
preparing.
incident reports too. I think it's almost mandatory. You have to have the prior incident reports if you're doing a revalidation.
Right.
So when you get all that together, it runs smoothly, saves everybody lots of time and money. Well, one of the things that we were talking about the other day is, do you have to be an engineer to be a facilitator?
No.
So why would you have an engineer be a facilitator? What's the advantage?
The preparation, as I am an engineer, obviously, and I'm also a certified facilitator. And with my engineering background, when I'm preparing to do facilitation for a PHA, I take the time to really follow the process and understand it, and feel that as an engineer, it's easier for me to identify things that don't look right on the drawings that I can question prior to the PHA.
Yeah, because you've seen this process probably before at another facility, and when you see something that doesn't look familiar, you kind of say, hold on a second. Why is this valve here? Why is there not a valve here? I've never seen
why is this valve not locked closed? There seems to be some working pressures that you're sending high pressure stuff into a low pressure system and it's not protected properly. So I can identify those things just by looking at the drawings.
My favorite is we see this not a lot, but probably a lot more than we should. We'll see a drawing have something marked out of service on it, and then we look at it closely, and what's going on? Tell us, Susan.
It's active. There is high pressure, high temperature. There is product flowing through whatever it is. Like one instance there was a heat exchanger that was out of service. It was a shell and tube where the process flows on both sides. And it wasn't being used as a heat exchanger, as in there wasn't an actual change of heat because one side was out of service. So they noted the entire heat exchanger was out of service, but the other side still had process flowing through it. So it was rated at 900, ANSI 900 pounds.
For those who may or may not be familiar with this production side of things, you have a tank that has a pipe in it or tubing in it. The heat stuff gets heated up as it goes through. Well, when you mark out of service on a drawing, that has a very specific meaning. It means it is not in service. There's a difference between not being in service and not actually functioning. You run that risk when you mark something out of service, but it has product flowing through it at a high pressure, a risk of performing maintenance or so forth on it, or not doing what you would do to a typical in-service vessel.
You would assume that it's already locked out, tagged out, clean, free of hydrocarbons and pressure and temperature, and in this case it was not.
Or at least at the bare minimum that when I opened up the bleed down valve, I didn't blast high pressure product all over the whole facility.
Right.
And keep blasting. Because here's the thing about these, sometimes these valves, you can open them or you can close them, but sometimes you can close them, but you can't open them back up, or you open them, you can't close them back up because they haven't been stroked in a while. And just think about it. If you have an out-of-service vessel that you opened up a bleed-down valve that started spewing product and you couldn't get the valve closed, you have to call your boss up and say, we're spewing product out of this out-of-service vessel. And that is just
after you run to the nearest ESD station.
Right.
And shut off the whole facility.
And this is, so when you have to explain to your supervisor that the facility is shut in because an out-of-service vessel has a bleed valve stuck and spilling product everywhere. That is a conversation you do not want to have. So as the engineer, Susan being an engineer, they pick up on stuff like that.
During the PHA, I can kind of help the engineer. We can play back and forth on how things run. Instead of just having one engineer in the room, you have two when I facilitate a PHA.
Well, cool. Well, we could go on and on and on about PHA. It's always interesting to see because PHAs, there's a lot of people in a room. And there's a lot of drawings flying around, so the stories just keep getting longer and longer. Just so you know, Adley has certified PHA facilitators who have PEs, professional engineering licenses.
Right.
And that's a service we offer to our clients. We love doing it. It's not always if you've ever done a PHA, when I said that, you kind of cringe because PHAs are not exactly the most glorious, exciting work. It's very just trudging through the mud and getting it right. That's what we do for a living. So
I shake the reins. I keep it moving.
Oh, yeah, no.
Pretty good about getting through as quickly as reasonable. It still takes a while.
And this is where Susan really excels. Me, I get kind of brash and I'm like, hey, we got a lot to do. We ain't got our PO is for X amount of time. We got to get this done. Stop talking about that. If it doesn't involve this, go get me another PO or we're not talking about it. Susan's more the ambassador. And it's amazing to watch her because she can keep everybody on task, everybody on focus, and not upset anybody. It's an art that that you just a naturally skilled talent she has.
Keep a smile on my face.
Yeah, like Susan can tell you that whatever you're about to say is not, we don't care about, and it's not important to our conversation, and you're wasting our time. But she does it in such a polite ambassador way that you don't realize that you just got shh.
But we can help out with initial PHAs. We can help out with revalidations. We can help out with any management of change that has some engineering changes that require a PHA. After incident PHAs, you name it, we can help with it.
All right. Well, we're running a little long on this podcast, so we are going to take a quick break, and Susan's going to bring us home. So stay tuned. If you're on that treadmill, go ahead and turn it up, climb it to the sky, put the speed at about 7 or 8 miles an hour. We're going to bring you home on that. So just bear with us for a second while we fulfill our financial obligations to our syndicates, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back as we close out this episode of the Adley Oil and Gas Report. This is Susan Frizzell, the president of Adley Services. Again, my email is susan@adleyservices.com. If you have heard our last few podcasts, you know that we started a YouTube channel. I believe we cut the audio from those, but we'd love for you to check out the videos on YouTube. Adley Services, YouTube/Adley Services?
No, having YouTube has a requirement. You got to be on 30 days and so much to go ahead and get the vanity. So just go to the adleyservices.com blog page. Okay. And on there, you can click on the YouTube. They actually have the YouTube videos linked up on there. And from there, you can go to the YouTube channel and check them out.
But we got some interesting technical information and some safety moments, and we're hoping to tape a few more in the coming weeks. So we'll have a whole new set coming out. We'd love to hear some reviews on our podcast and on our YouTube channel. So go to your iTunes and give us a review.
And go to the Adley Services blog page and find a YouTube channel and give us reviews. We want the good, the bad, the ugly.
Sure.
Preferably more good.
Right. It all can be found under the blogs tab at adleyservices.com. If you have a press release that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to email it to me at susan@adleyservices.com. If you have a PHA coming up, any type of PHA coming up in the next 12 months, please give me a call. I'd love a chance to bid on it, and I think that you'll be very pleased with the quality. And
absolutely. And what she's talking about is that, these PHAs require, every 5 years you have to do it. And there's also more requirements as far as if, you're making changes to the process and so forth. And if you have one come up in the next 12 months or, 2 years or in 1 month, really you want to contact us, give us a chance to bid on it, because we as engineers can really add value to your company and do this PHA. Probably, you'd be surprised. I mean, it really doesn't, people say, well, why don't more engineering firms do PHAs? Because it's really just tedious work, and there's easier ways to make a living, but we enjoy it.
Right, so give us a call. We'd like to say thank you to JB for coming in today. Really appreciated his input on our podcast.
Wow, wasn't that fun?
Mm-hmm. We want to thank to all of our listeners. We appreciate your support. All of the employees at Adley Services, we couldn't do it without you. And got to thank Purple Planet for our awesome music that I love.
Yeah, I love the music. I listen to it even just on the drive. So I think that pretty much covers. Thank yous to everybody. I don't have anything else. You want to go ahead and sign us off?
All right. Keep calm and drill on.